Hello, hello, and welcome to Bla Bla Black Sheep, a weekly yarny podcast where I, Sarah Korth of SEK Handmade, answer your yarny questions. Welcome. I am so glad that you are here. Happy New Year again. I feel like we're still in the throes of the newness of the new year. Very much so. Still getting back into the routine. Last week was just like, I don't know, the chaos of like doing the laundry from traveling and remembering where I was at with things and moving forward with things. And then this week we have about 800 appointments. And this is the only week that my boys have school every day. That might be exaggerating a little bit. We didn't get back from winter break until Tuesday of the first week. Next week they have Monday off. The next week I think they have Monday off. And then I think there's a full week. But it's just like, I really needed January to be chill, and it is not being chill. But what are you going to do? You're just going to do your best. You're just going to do your best to go with it, because what else can you do? So I'm on the wrong page here. So welcome. I hope you are feeling rested and serene, unlike me. What am I wearing? Today I'm going to be wearing my Arlitt Cowl. This is a favorite of mine, especially this time of year when I just always want to have something extra on to be cozy. This was a slight modification from the original. I think I'll have to double check, but I think I made a project for this where I told what I did. What I did was I started, I think, with fewer repeats because I wanted it to be a little closer to my neck. And then you can see it very slightly comes in at the top here. And all I did for that was I changed hook size. And I had intended to change hook size several times, but then when I put this on, I was like, oh no, that's close enough. So I really love how it is wide enough at the bottom to cover like my neckline of most of my non-V-neck shirts, but then comes up closer at the top to keep me nice and cozy. This was a mini skein set from Dragon Horde Yarn. It's not available anymore, but they dye just lovely yarn, so I highly recommend. And all I did was I wound them all up into tiny cakes, and I threw them in a bag, and my only rule was take whatever comes out of the bag, and it can't be the one I just used. So, but other than that, it's all just random, which was lots of fun and fun to see it come together. So I want to show you how I'm going to wear this, which you might be saying, Sarah, it's a cowl. How hard can it be? And you might be right. It's not hard. But I have a fun thing I like to do with my cowls that's a little different that I thought maybe you would enjoy too. So I'm just going to take it, put it on over my head with the wider edge down and the more narrow edge up at the top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shawl cuff here, and this was my shawl cuff that I shared with you at the gift guide. I'm going to wear it forever because I love that bee and the moon and all the things. This is by, oh gosh, I have dog fur right on my nose. This is by Sunrise Grove, who has been lovely and kind every time I've chatted with them. And I'm just going to take it and I'm going to cinch one side of my cowl up with my shawl cuff. So it's more floofy over here and then it's cinched in over here. I just think it's neat. It's like to adding a little accessory to your accessory. And then it's just a little different. So you could either do it like over to the side, or you could do it right down in the front. Then it almost looks like a bow. And then I also do this two ways, where I will do it like this, where I just have the whole cowl up and open and squish it randomly. Or what you can do is take the whole thing and fold it in half. And then it's a little more clean. This stands up a little more, and then you just do the same thing and put your shawl cuff on. Put your shawl cuff on. And then it's a little more structured that way. Either way, it's lots of fun. So that's what I am wearing, my Arlitt Cowl. What is bringing me joy? Oh gosh darn. I meant to get this. Okay, back up. What is bringing me joy is I have started a new routine in the new year, and I know, it's like we start these things and then they never stick. But I'm really enjoying this one, so I really hope it sticks. What I have been doing is I've been trying to get into my bed earlier. I will confess I have not been doing a great job of actually going to sleep earlier, but I've been getting into my bed earlier. I've been heating my elbows, which, if you don't know what that is, I think that was episode 40, maybe, that I talked about that. I'll link it below. I've been heating my elbows, and I've been reading a book. Who even am I? I want to be a person who reads books. I have some baggage around reading books. I was told as a child I wasn't a good reader, and then I figured out, like, just recently that, like, there are two ways to read books. You either just, like, absorb all the words, or you're a person who's, like, in your head reading it aloud. I'm the reading aloud in my head person, so, like, I read every word. My son is like a absorb it all at once. Like, he's super fast. And you know what? It's just a different way of your brain working, and not that one is good or bad. So that's some of my baggage. But it's been bringing me a lot of joy to sit and read before bed. And I've been reading a book, surprise, about yarn. And gosh darn it if I can't remember what it's called. I'll take a picture and I'll put it up here. It's by Clara Parks, I believe. And it's about her journey with following a bale of wool through the process of processing it. So she, I don't know. I'm not going to go into it. It's been very interesting. Maybe when I finish the book, I'll do like a little book review. But that's what's been bringing me joy, is just taking that time to be still and calm right before bed. And I have been sleeping better, partly, I'm sure, because the stress of the holidays is gone. But I think also partly just because that little routine has been really enjoyable and soothing for me. So I like it. I hope Weston doesn't go bonkers. There's a work crew in the neighborhood that's like going around with the little, I don't know, sploosher thing where they fill in the lines of the streets in hopes that they won't just like crack open with all of the snow plowing and freeze patterns throughout the year. But Weston has barked at them several times, and I can hear them right now. So hopefully he'll just chill. I don't know about that though. So we'll see. All right, let's talk small businesses. I already shared Dragon Horde Yarn and Sunrise Grove for my shawl cuff. I told you about this, I think, in one of my gift guide episodes. No, it was one of the episodes after my gift guide. And I said that it was about how to be gifted yarn that you'll love. And one of the things was buy it way in advance and then pack it away or give it to the person who's going to give it to you. And then forget about it. And I did that with a mug. My sister and I went to an art festival this summer in Iowa, where I'm from. And we each got a mug. And we were like, we have too many mugs. But also, if Dad gives these to us, our husbands can't be mad. So we bought the mugs in July, and then Dad gave them to us at Christmas, and it worked. It worked so perfectly. I did not remember what this mug looked like at all. I remember that it had a bird, but I didn't remember that the bird was this cute little guy sitting on the handle. How adorable is he? And so I opened it up and I was like I knew the mug was coming, but it was like, oh, that's what it looked like, which I love. So it can work. Buy yourself some yarn now. Hide it away until next Christmas. You'll get exactly what you want, and you'll be surprised. So that mug is from, okay, Ruben Ruiz is the artist. However, I believe their business name, I think my sister ended up with the business card that we got from them. I believe their business, when I did the Google searching, is Deer Creek Pottery, and it looks like they only sell at markets and other places. They don't have their own website or anything that they sell off of, but they do have a Facebook page. So I suppose maybe you could message and be like, I love that. Can I buy it? I don't know. But I'll link that down below in the show notes so that you can check it out if you would like to look at a mug. My sister got another mug by them, and hers was beautiful too. Something makes me remember a really gorgeous mug with like a flower on the front of it, like not just like painted on the front of it, but like potted on the front. That's not the word. Sculpted on the front of it, like it's 3D, and it was gorgeous. So go check them out. And then my mind this holiday was just like so many things going on. I could not keep anything straight. And so I opened these earrings from my mother-in-law, and I'm like, oh, they're beautiful. And she goes, you asked for them. What a surprise. And I did. And it had only been like 3 weeks ago. Anyways, I got another pair of earrings from Burley Babe. And I met her at the Appleton Art Festival. And so I've actually met her and chatted with her and seen lots of her work. It's absolutely gorgeous. She lives this very, from what I can tell, following her on social media now, this very not me lifestyle where she travels around the country and makes her jewelry and sells it and visits different festivals and stuff. Very nomadic lifestyle, which I really respect, but also know that could not handle myself. But lots and lots of really gorgeous earrings. I want to say all of it's nature inspired, lots of flowers and mushrooms and feathers and stuff like that. It's really, really gorgeous. So highly recommend. So there you go. Those are my small businesses. Let's talk announcements real quick. I'm going to try to be brief with these. WIP Wrap Up is going on. You guys, this is one of my most favorite events I host every year. The chat group is rolling. It is a group of just really kind and supportive people. The chat group is over on Instagram. I will link to my Instagram below. All you need to do is click on that. It'll take you to my page. Hit the message button. Message me and say, hey, Sarah, I want to be a part of the WIP Wrap Up chat group, and I'll add you. It's a lot of fun. Lots of people have lots of WIPs in there, so you don't need to feel like you're the only one. You are not. It's a very kind and supportive group. And then also, if Facebook is more your deal, I have a Make Along Facebook page where you can share your stuff there too. All of that will be linked below. I do want to tell you one of the things that I think is key to to managing any problem that seems overwhelming, which is kind of how I always feel about my WIPs a little bit, especially when I'm real honest with myself and dig them all out and not just look at like, oh, I have those 3 things I'm actively working on. It's way more than that. Organization is one of the things that I think is key whenever I feel overwhelmed by something. So I have created a WIP organizer. It's got a place for you to write down all of your WIPs, and then like just list them. And then it's got a real organizer place where you can list all of the details. So like, what is the pattern name? What hook or needle are you using to neat gauge? What yarn are you using? What stage are you at? Do you have the supplies or have you started it? Are you about halfway? Did you start it, but you're over it? You're gonna frog it. So you can print those pages out and then not only keep track of your WIPs to kind of get started to whittle them down, but also then throughout the year, you can add information in there as you start projects and just really keep yourself organized. So that is a totally free planner organizer, link in the description. You just put in your email address and it'll whoosh off to you so you can download it. So very excited about that. Love a good organizer. I said in last week's video that I would be releasing a new pattern this week, but for several reasons, I decided to push it back a week. So the pattern, if you're watching this on Wednesday, the pattern will officially be releasing on Thursday. So if you're watching on Wednesday and you're not a part of my email group, I encourage you to sign up for my email list because my email list always gets the very best discount code. So a link will be in the show notes for that too. There you go. All right, I think we're ready for some questions. Let's do questions. Here we go. Question number 1. I'm so excited to join WIP Wrap Up. I have lots of WIPs and I really want to get them under control. I've pulled out my WIPs and started finishing a few, but I heard you say finish it or frog it, and I'm just unsure what to frog. How do I know when it's time to let go of a project? That is a great question, because that can be hard, right? I decided, oh, silly me. I decided years ago, like years and years ago, you guys, to knit a baby blanket for my friend. This was back when I was teaching, when yarn was not my business. And I had a friend who had a baby. I got the cutest baby blanket. It was in a book. That's how long ago this was. And I started it. What was I thinking? It was so much more tedious and took so much longer than I thought it was going to. I texted that friend this year to wish her happy birthday, and she told me that her daughter is in high school now. So I started this before she had her, and now she is in high school. And it was last year that I got rid of that partially started WIP. In the end, I bought her a present and just moved on with life. So I get it. It can be hard to say, I've put this much work into something, but I'm going to let it go. So I want to give you some questions to ask yourself and some criteria to think about that will maybe help make the decision. The reality is it's your choice, and you can hold on to something for 16 years if you want to. I don't recommend it, but you can. But I hope that these questions and these ideas will help guide you to feel good about your decision, whether you decide to go ahead and frog it or you decide to keep it and hold on. So the first question I would say is, how close are you to finishing it? To me, that makes a big difference about whether it's worth frogging or not. If I just have ends to weave in, just weave in those ends. If I have a few more rows, if I have like, I don't know, back in the day, maybe like a decrease. I remember working the Harlow hat, which is an Andrea Mowry pattern. It's brioche. I worked the whole body of the hat, and then it got to the decreases, and I was like, oh, those seem scary. So I didn't. I powered through. I'm really proud of myself for that. But I could see myself getting to like the crown of the hat or like the last few rows of something, or if it was a garment, having all the pieces made but not seamed together sort of thing. So to me, how close I am to the finish line and what's holding me back from that makes a big difference whether it's worth finishing or not. So that's the first thing I'd ask myself. How close am I to finishing? Another thing I would ask is, does it bring you joy? Because you could be to the crown of a hat, and if you were thrilled about it when you started it and set it aside, and you look at it now and think, it's just not ever gonna like suddenly spark your interest again. So if you feel meh about something, it may not be worth finishing. Now, you could feel meh about something and still power through and finish and feel good about that. But I would say, like, I don't know about you, but I am not great at listening to my heart and myself. I have all these outside voices saying, power through, be productive. My husband was sick and he laid in bed for like 5 days straight. Would I ever do that? No, because I'm not being productive. And what value do I have if I'm not productive? I probably need to go see a therapist. I'm trying to listen to myself a little more. And if it doesn't bring me joy, why would I finish it? So that's something to think about. Another thing I would think about is, what are you going to do with it when it's done? So a lot of times we get drawn into projects because it's the new popular thing. It's looks real pretty on the designer. It uses a gorgeous yarn. You can use something from your stash and you feel good about that. And then you get down the road, and if it's not something that you really desire to have the finished project, all of those other shininesses wear off. And so then we set it aside for something else that's new and shinier. So if you're making a shawl and you never wear shawls, why are you making it? And what are you going to do with it when it's done? Now, the answer could be, I will finish it and set it on a shelf and feel good about having made it. And maybe that's good for you. Or the answer could be, when I finish making it, I'm going to gift it to somebody who will appreciate the shawl. And so even though you don't wear the shawl, the act of making the shawl was enjoyable to you. And then passing it on to somebody who appreciates it is like enjoyable for them. And then makes you feel good because you got to share your craftiness. So just because you finish, just because there's something that you won't use when it's done, doesn't mean you shouldn't finish it, I guess, which is maybe making this harder for you. But I want you to think about that, because you could look at, let's say you were working on a blanket. You're almost done with this blanket. You know, you've got maybe like 5 rows left to do. And you're thinking, I don't like this blanket anymore. I will never use this blanket. I should just frog the whole thing, which, first of all, God bless you if you frog a whole blanket. That's a lot of yarn to frog. But also, if you're that close to the end, you might say, I'm going to finish this and I'm going to give it to my kid, my nephew, my coworker. So I'm going to fold it up and stick it in the back of my car, because, you know, when you live up in the norths like me, it's a good idea to keep warm things in your car just in case. Or, you know, so even though you might not be thrilled with the end product, it might be useful, or someone else might be thrilled with it. And so maybe finishing those last few finishing touches and passing it along is really the most beneficial thing to do. Another question I would ask is, do you love the yarn? And if the answer is yes, would you use it for another project? Like, is it better suited for another project? Could it be used for a project that that you would love more? And if the answer is yes to either of those things, then for goodness sakes, go ahead and frog it. And then you have more yarn that you love to use in a project that you're going to love. To me, that just makes so much sense. And then my last question, which I already talked about, was, would someone else appreciate the finished item? So those are my suggestions. I hope that one of those questions in there, or maybe several of those questions in there, that when you ask yourself, that helps guide you to make a decision about whether you're going to finish it or frog it that you feel good about. Because what you don't want to do, you don't really want to go in either direction, right? You neither want to hold on to projects you're never going to finish, taking up physical space, mental space, energy that I don't know about you, but I don't have. I don't have any extra energy to be lazing about on projects I'm never going to finish. You don't want that. You don't want to hang on to it and have it be a burden. But neither do you want to just willy-nilly frog things all over the place and then regret it. The good news, though, I'm going to say, if you're going to lean in either direction, I would lean towards frogging. Because the good news is, if you frog something and you later regret it, you could always make it again. And maybe if you frog something and then you decide, gosh, I'd really like to make that again, maybe you'll find a yarn that's a better fit for it. I mean, maybe you'll reuse the same yarn, but maybe you'll find a yarn that's a better fit for it, and then that will be the thing that allows you to get the whole thing done. So there you go. Alrighty. Question number 2. If I just cannot get gauge, what is more important, row height or stitches? All right, let's break this down a little bit. So gauge is a number that should be in your patterns, and what gauge is simply the size of the stitches. So how big or small the designer's stitches were. And the point of this is that to get something to really fit well, you need your gauge to match as closely as possible to the designer's gauge. Here's the deal with it, though. That can be really challenging. And so sometimes what we have to make a decision about is, I can meet either the number of stitches in the gauge or the number of rows in the gauge. And so I'm going to pick one or the other and go with that, and then either just deal with the consequences of it or make some adjustments so that whatever I'm making still fits. So the answer to this, like the answer to so many things, is it depends. It depends on what you're making, and it depends on the construction of what you are making. So let's say you are making a hat, okay? And you can, and it's a bottom up hat worked in the round, because this makes a difference. If it's a bottom up hat worked in the round, probably the most important thing about a hat is the circumference. You need it to fit on your noggin. So the first thing I would say is measure your noggin. We spend a lot of time being aware of bust size and how shirts fit, but we often forget that people have different head sizes. And I just really distinctly remember a pattern test where a tester said, "I finished my hat, but it doesn't fit." And I said, "How big is your head?" And the answer to that was significantly larger than the finished size of the hat. So of course it was tight. Had that person known ahead of time that their head was much larger than the intended head size, they could have either made adjustments or not tested. What if you're casually doing it, you could pick a different pattern. So let's say you measure your head, the hat, the intended size will fit you, okay? And so you can either meet stitches or you can meet rows in your gauge. I would meet stitches. Here is why. Because the circumference of the hat is what's going to fit over your head, and you need it to fit over your head. You can, depending on the pattern, usually more easily adjust the amount of rows you have. So if there's a stitch pattern, you can add a repeat or subtract a repeat, or maybe just, at the top before the crown shaping, like work another row of one of the stitches, or work another 3 rows of one of the stitches, or, you can get real creative. The great thing, again, about yarn is you can always go back and frog. So if you say, I'm going to do stitches, that makes my rows too short. So I'm going to add every repeat of the pattern. I'm going to add an additional row of one of the stitches that's already in the pattern, because I think that will give me about the right row height, that then I can just go into the crown shaping and be done. And if you get there and it's too short or too long, you can frog back and adjust, which I know isn't always the most fun. But if you look at it as like an adventure, sometimes that makes it a little more fun. If you're on a deadline, then the pressure is not great. So in that case where stitches are the circumference of the hat, I would go with stitches instead of rows, and then I would try to make some adjustments to make the height fit well too. The other thing you can always do is you can make your hat, depending on the pattern, you can make your hat, and if it's a little short, you can just apply ribbing around the bottom of it, and to add the extra length, and then you don't even have to frog, which is nice. Now, what if, let's say, your hat, instead of being worked in circles, up and up and up and up and up, or down and down and down and down and down, what if it's worked flat and then seamed? So your stitches, instead of going around, are going up and down. If that's the case, you may want to go with your rows because that's going to be the circumference. And it might be easy to just add a few or take away a few stitches to adjust the height. Or it might be easier to go with stitches in that situation. I'm like, system? That's not the word I'm looking for. Situation as well. And then you just add more rows or subtract a repeat of rows to make the hat fit the circumference. So you can see it kind of depends. I will say, if you have a hat that is worked this direction and then you seam it up and put it over your head, a lot of times those are then cinched at the top, like it's essentially a tube and then you cinch it closed at the top. That cinching, in my experience, shortens the height of the hat because all that bulk of that yarn coming together at the top pulls everything up just a little bit. So if that's the literal adjustment you're making, it makes a difference. The same thing happens in sweaters. There are lots of different constructions, whether it's from top to bottom or bottom to top, that circumference may be the most important. Usually the circumference is most important in a sweater. So you may want to go with stitches. However, a fun, unique construction that I've been seeing more and more lately is people working from a sleeve across to the other sleeve. And if that's the case, then your rows are your circumference and not your stitches. Yeah, I'm like, wait, is that wrong? No, that's right. So when you go up and down across, the number of rows you have across your body is going to be the circumference of your body. So that's different then. So to determine, I guess, which would be most helpful here, to determine which is more important, you need to decide where your fit is most important. So if your fit is most important across your shoulders, across your bust, across your hips, one of those things, then that's the size you need to be aiming for, and you need to know your measurements there. Then you need to look at the construction of what you want to make, and you need to decide which of those sizes, row height or number of stitches, make up that measurement. And then I would go with that answer, whether it's stitches or rows. I hope that makes sense. I was even thinking a very simple example would even be a bracelet, right? So everybody has different wrist sizes. I am not a small person, but I do have fairly small wrists. And if a pattern were worked this way, right? I work a few stitches and I go back and forth and back and forth. Then the circumference is going to end up being how many rows I have. So I would either want to meet row gauge, and then my bracelet might adjust in width a little bit, which probably wouldn't be a big deal. Or I'm going to want to adjust the number of rows to make it fit. But if it's a bracelet that's worked around and goes up, you know, and then you like slip it over your hand, then make sure it can fit over your hand, because what fits my wrist doesn't always fit over my hand. Whoops, there he goes. So that's something to think about. But then also, it's probably stitches and not rows that's going to make that circumference. It is. And then that's different. So, okay. I apologize for the Birkin. Thank you so much for joining me today, and Weston too. I love answering your questions, and I would love to answer questions that you have. There's a link down below to fill out a very simple form if you have a question. I would love it if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below if you have any suggestions about any of our questions. This is always a conversation. Thank you again for joining me today, and happy crafting!